Brian, take it away.
All right, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning. I'd like to have the national anthem played before we start.
All right.
Oh, God bless our land of Malawi, keep it a land of peace. Put down each and every enemy, hunger, disease, and greed. Join together all of us as one, that we be free from fear. Bless our leader, each and every one, and Mother Malawi.
All right, good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, depending on where you're joining this webinar from. I would like to thank you for joining us this evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to this webinar for Malawians in the diaspora on the implementation of dual citizenship and the administration of national identity cards this evening. My name is Brian Chikapa, working in the planning division of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and attached to the Diaspora Affairs Unit. I will be your host to this webinar. I would like to remind you that this webinar is being recorded and your attendance confirms your consent. At this moment, let me invite Mr. John Kawai, Acting Head of Planning and Research and Coordinator of the Diaspora Affairs Unit, to open this webinar. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brian. Your Excellencies, High Commissioners and Ambassadors here present, government officials from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Homeland Security, Department of Immigration and Citizenship Services, and the National Registration Bureau, Malawians in the diaspora, welcome to this very important webinar. My duty today is very simple. I just want to introduce you to what we are trying to do through this webinar. As you are aware, the government has been engaging Malawians in the diaspora in so many ways. Mostly when VIPs travel to various parts of the world, they meet various representatives of Malawians in the diaspora. And I think during all those interactions, we have heard, and we have listened to most of what you have said, and one of which was about dual citizenship. And this particular issue has actually been taken up, and the government has actually amended the Citizenship Act. But we noticed that there was still a gap in terms of making sure that this information that has been done by government is also trickling down to Malawians in the diaspora. So we realized that there could be something we can do to address this gap of information. We also realized that there has been moves, for instance, to introduce the national ID cards, which so far being administered in country. There has not been any clear indication of how Malawians in the diaspora have to access this particular service. And it was felt that, in fact, for now, Malawians in diaspora have to make that long journey to come to Malawi in order to actually come and apply for this particular card. So it was felt that, no, I think this is not a practical thing. Let's find a way to ensure that Malawians in diaspora are served where they are. Hence, the effort that Ministry of Foreign Affairs took to work together with the Ministry of Homeland Security, the Department of Immigration and Citizenship Services, and the National Registration Bureau to put together a few ideas to say that, okay, let us put some information forward for Malawians in diaspora to know what is available and how government is ready to serve them. Therefore, I'm trusting that you are all excited and that you will have a good time and we'll have a good interaction. I don't have a lot to add. I just want to wish you all the best, and we'll continue to interact as we go through this webinar. All the best. Thank you very much. Brian.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Kawai, for those remarks. I would like to remind you that this webinar is being live streamed on YouTube. With this, let me quickly introduce the program. We will have 3 presentations in total, and each presentation will be followed by a Q&A session. As the presentations are underway, please feel free to type out your comments in the comment section on YouTube. And also those on Zoom, use the chat box to ask any questions. There will be people who will respond to the questions as the presentations are going on. But I will also single out a few comments which I will ask the presenters to respond to. Once again, please be reminded that this webinar is designed to help you make informed decisions regarding dual citizenship application processes and national ID administration. At this time, I would like to invite Mr. Gibson Chilongo to take the mic and give us our first presentation on the implementation of dual citizenship. Mr. Chilongo, please take over.
Thank you very much. I hope you are able to see my screen. I'm going to take you through a presentation on the implementation of Malawi dual citizenship. The outline of my presentation, firstly, I will look at who is eligible for dual citizenship. Then I'll explain in detail what dual citizenship is all about. And then I'll look at the application process and procedure. Then we'll look at the rights and the privileges, and including the duties of a dual citizen. And then the use of travel documents. And then I will conclude. On eligibility, dual citizenship in Malawi is applicable to Malawian citizens who acquire the citizenship by birth or descent, and they have to be of full age and capacity. We may be aware that the citizenship in Malawi is acquired in a number of ways. One of them is through birth, through descent, through naturalization, through registration or confinement in special circumstances. But dual citizenship is only applicable to citizens of Malawi who acquired such citizenship by birth or descent, and they have to be of full age and capacity. I will explain what I mean by citizenship by birth, what I mean by citizenship by descent, and what full age means in this context. And when we say capacity, what do we mean? Now, for a person to be a citizen of Malawi by birth, This is the criteria. The person must be born in Malawi, and such birth should have happened after the 5th day of July 1966. And on the day of birth, one of the parents must be a citizen of Malawi. Again, the father should not be a citizen of a country with which Malawi is at war. And the birth should not occur at a place then under the occupation by the enemy. So I think for now, let's focus on requirement number 1, 2, and 3. That the person must be born in Malawi after 5th July 1966, and the birth, at the time of birth, one of the parents must be a citizen of Malawi. This person is a citizen of Malawi by birth. Some people think kuti kungobadwira ku Malawi kuno, makolo sungatana badwira ku Malawi kuno, koma mwina agogo anachokera kunja kwa dziko lino, amaganiza ngati kuti ndekuti they can be Malawians. No, the mere fact of being born in Malawi is not enough for a person to be a citizen of Malawi by birth. All those requirements have to be present. Now, when you talk about citizenship by descent, a person must be born outside Malawi. And it has to be after the 5th of July, 1966. And on the date of birth, either the father or mother must be a citizen by birth. So if either the father or mother is not a citizen by birth, but he may be a citizen by registration or naturalization, such person cannot be a citizen of Malawi. So one of the parents must be a citizen by birth if the person is born outside Malawi. And when we talk about full age, in the context of the citizenship law in Malawi, we are talking about a person who has attained the age of 21 years. Or if it is a woman under the age of 21 years, that woman must be married. So, for example, a woman who is 20 years or 17 years, but is married, then she's of full age. So a woman who is 17 years is married, and a man who is 20 years, it's the woman who is of full age. So when we talk about full capacity, we are talking about a person who is not of unsound mind. So here we're talking about the soundness of the mind of a person. Now, we have a number of applications under dual citizenship. And let me first of all start with the notification and the registration of dual citizenship. This is made by a person who is already a citizen, but he would wish to acquire additional citizenship. So this should be a person who is a citizen by birth or descent who would wish to acquire additional citizenship. So there are forms which this person has to fill, and we're calling them Form AA. And upon being registered, this person will be issued a certificate. So when the documents are submitted to the Department of Immigration and Citizenship Services, they will be forwarded to the Honorable Minister, who upon approval will issue a certificate of dual citizenship. That's the first application. Then we have, okay, before I go to the second one, let me talk about the documents which one has to submit. There is a checklist which can be accessed I think on our website, but let me just go through the documents. Apart from a covering letter, one has to complete the forms which I was talking about, then 2 passport size photographs, certified photocopy of birth certificate, certified photocopies of national ID, because here, mind you, we are talking about a person who is already a citizen. And then this application has to be submitted with a prescribed fee of 100,000. Then we have another application which can be made. This is the restoration of citizenship, but as a dual citizen. We already know that even before this dual citizenship issue came in, people were able to restore their citizenship, but not as dual citizens. But this time around, the amendment has made it possible for people who lost Malawi citizenship due to the operation of the previous law, which prohibited dual citizenship for adults. So a person who lost citizenship can restore the citizenship by making an application in a form of which we are calling Form AC. And these are the documents which one has to submit, a covering letter. And mind you, these documents have been duplicate. A covering letter, fully completed application forms, 2 passport size photographs of the applicant, certified photocopies of valid or expired Malawi passport, but particularly the biodata page. And this should be the passport of the applicant, or passport of any of the parents where the applicant was included. As we are aware previously, we had the passports where parents could include their children. So if those passports are still available, they have to be photocopied, certified, and submitted together with the application. And the person has to submit a birth certificate or any document proving the Malawi citizenship of the applicant or any of his or her parents. Now, in the absence of all the documents that I've talked about, a person can submit an affidavit, and this affidavit has to be sworn by the parents, attesting to the citizenship of the applicant, or a relative attesting to the citizenship of the applicant's parents. So in case all those documents which I've talked about are not available, then an affidavit can suffice. And there is a prescribed fee of 100,000 kwacha. Now, apart from all those documents, because here we're talking about restoration of citizenship, then there has to be an oath of allegiance. Now, where the application is approved by the Honorable Minister, a certificate will be issued. In case the application is rejected for one reason or the other, the Honorable Minister will inform the applicant in writing. Now, we have a third application, which is can be made under dual citizenship. This is notification of dual citizenship of minors. Here, what we are talking about is the cases where a person acquires the dual citizenship as a minor, possibly maybe because the person was born outside the country, but the parents are Malawians by birth. So most of the times, or not most of the times, but these people are citizens by descent. Here we are talking about citizens by descent. A person who acquires dual citizenship as a minor. Most of these are citizens by descent. Now, previously, the law allowed dual citizenship, but for minors. The moment a person attained the age of 21 years, he was supposed to choose one nationality. So either the person will maintain the citizenship of Malawi, or will choose the citizenship of the other country, but not both. But as a minor below the age of 21 years, the person was allowed to hold dual nationality. But in this case, the law has been amended, and we are saying a person who acquired the dual citizenship as a minor can maintain that dual citizenship upon attaining the age of majority. So this person should be one who, upon the attainment of 18 years of age, is a citizen of Malawi by birth or descent, and to his or her knowledge is also a citizen of another country. So upon the attainment of the age of 19, that person can make an application, which we are calling notification of dual citizenship of minors. And this has to be made in a form which we are calling Form AE. And mind you, these forms can be accessed online and in our foreign missions. Now, upon application, the person will be issued a certificate of dual citizenship by the Honorable Minister. Now, what are the application documents? There has to be a covering letter, a fully application, completed application forms, 2 passport size photographs of the applicant, certified photocopies of valid Malawi passport biodata page of the applicant. And in addition, there has to be certified photocopies of other countries' passport biodata page, certified photocopy of applicant's death certificate. This is very important because when you are talking about citizenship here in Malawi, the place of birth of the applicant or a person and the place of birth of the parents is very, very vital. And then the person can also submit any other document evidencing Malawi citizenship of the applicant or any of the parents. And here I'm stressing that a birth certificate is very vital. And now when submitting the application, there's a prescribed fee which has been attached, which is 50,000 kwacha at the moment. Now, all these 3 applications which I've talked about, when a person is successful, is at liberty to apply for a Malawi passport and it be issued the same. So this particular passport, when entering Malawi, it means the person will have 2 passports, the passport of Malawi and the passport of that other country. But here, what we are saying is, when a person is entering the country, he has to use 1 passport and exit using the same. So if one uses the passport of Malawi to enter the country, the same has to be used upon exit. When a person uses these documents, travel documents interchangeably, so for example, has entered the country using a British passport and would like to exit using a Malawi passport, but with the intention to deceive an immigration officer, there is a penalty for that. In fact, it's a criminal offense to do that. So to avoid such inconveniences, it's better just to use 1 passport on entry and use the same on exit. But I have to make it clear that if that other nationality or that other citizenship requires a visa to enter Malawi, even if one uses a different passport, they will still enter the country without a visa, because in the first place, that person is a citizen of Malawi. So yeah, I have to stress that it is very important for a dual citizen to declare that he or she is a dual citizen when entering Malawi, so that appropriate clearance arrangements can be made. Now, I'll talk a little bit about the application process and procedure. Application forms can be downloaded from the website which I'm showing on screen, www.immigration.gov.mw. Hard copies of the application forms can also be obtained in Malawi. If the applicant is in Malawi, they can be obtained from our headquarters in Blantyre, at the government building, regional government building for the South. We are housed in that building. Can be accessed at the citizenship section, or they can also be accessed in Mangochi, at our regional office in Lilongwe and in Mzuzu. In Mzuzu, we are opposite Katoto ground. Now, all applications have an upfront payment procedure. So when one is submitting, they have to pay upfront. And currently, the application forms have to be submitted in hard copy, because on the website you can only download the forms, but we don't have an online application platform as we speak. But of course, we are moving towards that. So these forms have to be submitted physically in Blantyre, Lilongwe, Msuzu, and Mangojo offices, which I've mentioned. And in terms of payment, we don't have an online payment system at the moment, but I can say we are moving towards that. This thing has just started. The payment has to be made physically at our paying points in our offices. Now, for those who are outside the country, payments can be made through a relative, just the way we do with the passports. I think even passports at the moment, you have to process here at home. And then they pay at the cashier. So the same applies to dual citizenship. We have to do the same. And we also encourage applicants to make the applications in person. The way the forms have been designed, at some point they still require a person to come back home. So it will be better, it will be easier for a person to come back home and make the necessary applications. Now, let me talk about the rights and privileges and the duties as well. A dual citizen will be subjected to the laws of Malawi when in the country. So, dual citizen sikuti akabwera kunoko ndekuti akhoza kupalamula kapena kuchita china chose just because ndi nzikaso ya dziko lina. No, will be treated the same because in the first place munthu uja ndi citizen. Nzika ndithu ya dziko la Malawi. So will be treated equally, will be subjected to the same law, and if will be taken to the courts, will be tried using the same law. So I have to make it clear there that the rights, duties, and privileges according to Malawi citizens apply the same way to a person who holds dual nationality. And let me state that in terms of economic activity, a dual citizen is free to do any lawful economic activity. There is no law at the moment which put barriers on what a dual citizen can do in the private sector. The same applies in the public sector. A dual citizen can hold almost any public office, can be employed in the public service if that particular person meets all the requirements. But I have to state that there is a part in the law which we are calling a seventh schedule of the Malawi Citizenship Act, which has put some offices which mainly concerned with the governance of the state. These include office of the president, the vice, and some institutions which do not require divided allegiance, like the defense forces, the rank from inspector and above in the police service, and some other public offices which are at the center of governing the state, and some other institutions which do not require some divided allegiance. There are some limitations. A dual citizen cannot hold such offices. But when we talk of the rest of the public service, like services like teaching, medical field, accounting field, there are no limitations. When we talk about the private sector, investments can be made without any permit. A person can enter the country without any visa, because in the first place, we are saying the person is a citizen of Malawi. So I just wanted to make it clear there. Now, in conclusion, apologies, I've taken much of your time. In conclusion, there are three issues, main issues in the dual citizenship amended law. Firstly, it has created a platform where a citizen of Malawi can acquire one additional citizenship. And let me emphasize here, it's one. The law is allowing only one additional citizenship of any country of choice. And secondly, it has also allowed citizens of Malawi who acquired their citizenship by birth or descent to restore their Malawi citizenship, but as dual citizens. And thirdly, it has also allowed people who acquired dual citizenship as minors to maintain their dual citizenship upon the attainment of the age of majority, which is 21 years of age, or for married women lesser than 21 years of age. Thank you for your attention. In case there is need for further clarifications, communication can be directed to that address, which is shown on the screen, or alternatively, you can visit our website, www.immigration.gov.mw. I'm Gibson Chilongo, the head of legal services in the Department of Immigration and the Citizenship Services. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chilongo, for the insightful presentation. I'm sure most of your questions have been addressed in the comment section on YouTube, but we will also single out a few which we would like to ask Mr. Chilongo.
Right. Now, just come in very quickly. The chat box on YouTube has been very active, and there are several questions which I will direct to Mr. Chilongo. The presentation included the fact that this is applying to Malawians who have been born after 6 July 1966. So the question that has been asked is to say, what happens to Malawians who were born before that date? How are they going to be treated? I think there's a variation of the same question where it's about people who left Malawi and political, maybe for political reasons, and then they had to go abroad and they lost their Malawian citizenship. But then they also do fall into this category where they were born before that date. So I think that can be addressed together. There's another question where the second set of question is people who have acquired, who have Malawian citizenship, but would like to acquire an additional citizenship. So for instance, now a Malawian in diaspora has already got the Malawian citizenship, but he or she has an opportunity to acquire an additional citizenship. What's the process like? And then finally, I think just to along the same lines, if you have someone who has a Malawian citizenship and they have decided to, they want to restore their Malawian citizenship, and they have applied, and then they want to apply maybe for a third nationality. How is that going to be sorted out? Mr. Chilongo, please.
Thank you very much for those questions. I'll start with the third one. A person who would like to get a third nationality or third citizenship. I think that will not be possible because the way the law has been amended, it has specifically stated that a person who would wish to get one additional citizenship. So on that one, that would be difficult, particularly on our part, to process dual nationality for a person twice. I don't think there will be that platform. I'll go to the second question, which is saying what is the process where a person is already a citizen and would like to get additional citizenship. I don't know if you have captured it correctly, but as I stated in the presentation, I think I stated that the application has to be made in a form which we are calling Form AA. So I think what would be necessary is just maybe to get the checklist, submit the appropriate documents at our headquarters or regional offices, pay the prescribed fee, and then the application will be processed accordingly, the way we process all other applications up until the minister makes his or her determination. Then we'll communicate the same to the applicant. On the first question, unfortunately, the definition of a citizen by birth, I think citizen by birth or descent has been pinned to issues of Malawi as a state. So we got our independence along the same dates which we are talking about, 60th July 1966. So when we talk about a citizen by birth or descent, we are talking according to the definition of citizen by birth or descent in the law. And the law is saying any person born after the 5th of July 1966, and one of the parents is a citizen of Malawi, that person shall be a citizen by birth. Now, in the event that a person has been born before that date, then I think deductively that person is not a citizen by birth according to the definition of citizenship by birth in the Malawi Citizenship Act. But there is a section 3 of the Malawi Citizenship Act, sorry that I'll be quoting the law, which is talking about people who are citizens of Malawi before the enactment of the 1966 Malawi Citizenship Act. So all people who are citizens of Malawi by operation of any other law in Malawi about nationality, that person shall continue to be a citizen of Malawi after the enactment of the law. So dakangati lamulo limene limapereka unzika tisanalandire ufulu, ndi anthu analandira unzika umene wifika lamulo limenelo, anthu amenewo anapangidwanso recognize kuti ndi nzika mulamulo la nyowani ili la 1966. So those are citizens, ambiri maiwo ndi ma citizens by birth, anthu imeneyo ndi ma citizens by descent. Komano tikakamba za citizenship by birth or descent, malamulo amene watunena kuti 1966, tikukamba za anthu amene anabadwa after the 5th of July 1966. Mwina tifotokoze moteromo. I don't know what was the rationale or amene amapanga lamulo koma zili moteromo ndithu. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chilongo, for your responses. And thank you for the questions from the comment section from YouTube. I hope this has been very informative and eye-opening. Just due to time, we shall move on to our next presentation. I trust that we now know who to approach when wanting to process dual citizenship and what steps we should expect. At this juncture, I would like to call upon Mr. Chiponde, again from the Department of Immigration and Citizenship Services, to lead our second presentation on passport renewal for Malawians in the diaspora. Mr. Chiponde, please take the mic.
Thank you very much, Brian. Hope the host will share the screen for my presentation. Host.
Okay, okay, just give me a second.
Excellencies, officials from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Homeland Security, Department of Immigration and Citizenship Services officials, officials from National Registration Bureau, Malawians in the diaspora, and those streaming live. My name is Wellington Chiponde, and I'm the Public Relations Officer for the Department of Immigration and Citizenship Services. This morning, afternoon, and evening, depending from where you are, I will give you a presentation on passports. And basically on passports, I'll touch base on issues of background of electronic passports in Malawi. I'll also give you current passport fee structure and the application process outside Malawi. I'll also give you the future plans for passport application in Malawi and contacts. These are very necessary whenever you would want to make contacts to the department. And very quickly, let me take you through the e-passport background. Basically, when I say e-passport, I mean electronic passports. And indeed, the Malawi government, through the Department of Immigration and Citizenship Services, introduced electronic passports in January of 2020. And to be more precise, the department kickstarted issuance of electronic passports on 15th of January 2020. And just to give a synopsis of what an electronic passport is, this is a passport booklet which is embedded with an electronic chip containing details and biometrics of the passport holder. And initially, the introduction of electronic passports was conceptualized with an intention of maintaining the integrity that is attached to a Malawi passport internationally as a trusted travel document. And I need also to emphasize on another point that these electronic passports can only be acquired by Malawians. So it does not necessarily matter which way you obtained the Malawi citizenship, but eligibility is only for one being a Malawian. Next slide. And currently, these electronic passports are being used concurrently with the machine readable zone passports, which are not yet expired. You might be aware that government through the Department of Immigration has not yet recorded the machine readable zone passports. These were passports that were issued before the introduction of electronic passports in January of 2020. And Malawi passports are only issued in Malawi. We are not issuing these passports in any country, whether the United States, the United Kingdom, or South Africa. We are only issuing these passports in Malawi. But submissions of applications regarding passports can be done in any country that's through Malawi embassies and consular offices. And in terms of these passports, particularly I may zero down to issues of ordinary passports because many people fall in the category of ordinary passports. These ordinary passports are in two folds. We have a 36-page passport as well as a 48-page passport booklet, and they are as well priced differently. Next slide. In a synopsis, I would want to give the Malawi passport fee structure. I indicated that we have ordinary passports with 36 pages and ordinary passports with 48 pages. So a normal service passport, this is a normal service, is currently at 90,000 Malawi kwacha. And there is also another one, an express service, which is at 160,000 kwacha. And when one is replacing a damaged or a lost passport, they are required to pay 150,000 kwacha, whilst an express service for a lost or damaged passport is at 180,000 kwacha. We also have ordinary passports, 36-page books for international truck drivers. And as a normal service, they are at 60,000 kwacha. And I should highlight that a normal service passport can take 10 days. You might be aware that previously you could wait for 20 working days for a passport to be issued when you initially apply. But we looked at these things and we did quite a business processly engineering to ensure that Malawians should get their passports in good time. And currently you can get it in 10 days. In the express one, you can get it in a day or two. So for 48 pages, normal service passport is at 130,000. So the arrangement is the same. You can get it in 10 days. And the express service is at 180,000 kwacha. You can get it in a day or two. Replacing lost or damaged passports, this is normal service. You can get, you are required to pay 180,000 for losing or damaging the Malawi passport, and you would want to acquire a 48-page one. In the express service for lost or damaged one, one is required to pay 200,000 kwacha. And we have also prices, fee structures for ordinary passports for minors, and for temporary passports, for service passports, as well as diplomatic passports. Next slide. And knowing that this presentation is made to Malawians, particularly living outside Malawi, I just want to give you this information that whilst you are outside there, Department of Immigration recognizes that a travel document is of quite paramount importance when you are moving in the streets of the foreign countries. So what is required? One is required to download application form from the website, which is epassport.gov.mw. This is the website where you can download a passport application form, and you are also required to complete the passport application form. There is also need to have a passport photo size. It has to be very clear and with a white background. And at the same time, one is also required to visit embassy or any fingerprint expert for fingerprint capturing, especially for those that may wish to submit, not necessarily through the embassy, because when you go to the embassy, we already have experts who could help you in terms of capturing your fingerprints. And there is a way of submitting these applications. Applications can either be submitted through the embassy or send it via courier. And the current arrangement is that you cannot pay these passports kuma embassy or kuma high commissions koma mukufunikira kuti mutumize ndalamazi kwa mbale wanu aliyese amene ali konkuno, and payment can only be done in Malawi. So you send money to any relative in Malawi who, upon submission of these passport applications, then they will pay on your behalf whilst you are away. And passports will be delivered to the owner using the very same method which they submitted their application to us. If they submitted through the courier, then we'll use the very same courier to submit these passports to them. And if they use the embassy or the High Commission, then immigration will do likewise to send these passports to them. Next slide. The initial plan when we were conceptualizing this e-passport was that we install the passport system in all embassies, but you might be aware that when we started this in 2020, COVID was still there, and we have had international travel restrictions. So implementation of this was hit hard. Probably we faced this hiccup that we could not install the passport system in all embassies. We marked 19 embassies to ensure that Malawians get passport services very easily. But COVID restrictions failed us. At the same time, we also wanted to make sure that there is a payment gateway, an online payment gateway, so that people should not be sending forth, probably sending to some of their relatives home enangatumiza ndalama zawo malomo olipirira passport anthu amazipezera njira zina. So we wanted to automate the whole process so that people could be able to pay the online, but we failed to secure such payment gateway. So COVID restrictions and the payment gateway delayed the whole process until the e-passport project was terminated in December of 2021, when COVID restrictions almost in many countries started to be eased. So as indicated, when you are submitting the application through the embassies, there has to be the application form, the passport size photo. If you have lost that one, these are for renewals. You need to submit a police report when you lost the passport. But when the passport is available, then you need to submit it. For married women who may wish to change their surname and not necessarily the first name, they may change the surname by submitting a marriage certificate or a divorce certificate to facilitate the change of their name. And we also require copies of parents for passports of minors. These are probably children from 0 to 10 years. So there is a requirement for passport, copies of parents' passports, as well as birth certificate for these children. Next slide. Our future plans as Department of Immigration regarding passport services, we want to make these passport services very closer to you. And we are looking forward to that time when passport application will be done online. And what we will be looking forward at that time is that all passport applications will be submitted and they will be submitted online. And when one has submitted, he will be basically required to book an appointment with us for the interview, because there is this stage that is very crucial in as far as passport issuance is concerned, is the interview. And then core issue yomwe ilipo yoti anthu amadandaula kuti akatumiza ndalama zawo kumudzi kuno ena sawalipirira, we will require them to pay online so that there are no such hassles or hiccups in terms of payments. And identification of online service provider delayed the implementation of, this is what I initially indicated in the previous slide. We are looking forward to ensure that we automate the whole system in terms of passport application. The timeline currently is that we need to do this by December of 2023. That's next year. So we are challenging ourselves that we need to automate this whole thing by December 2023. Next slide. It's also very important that we know who to contact probably when it comes to issues of passports. We have immigration officers in various embassies and missions. In the United States of America, we have Mr. Chikulupililo Peter Kakatela. He can be contacted at +124-042-92671 or email him through this email, malawi.ppt@gmail.com. And in the Republic of South Africa, we have Mrs. Maria Hoahoa. She can be contacted at +278-1023-2075. And the email is mnampota@gmail.com. And in Zambia, we have Mrs. Esnat Kaimila. She can be contacted at +260-970517923. And the email is acgama@gmail.com. In the United Kingdom, we have Mrs. Martha Gonondo, and she can be contacted at +4420-7421-6010 and at London at malawi-highcommission.co.uk. In Zimbabwe, we have Mr. Sebastian Lichapa, and he can be contacted at +263-71961-1045. And also we have a desk officer who she's specifically assigned to look at all applications from the embassies. She's designated right here in Malawi, Mrs. Stella Ngalande. She can be contacted at +265-995-413925, and the email is nakayunis@gmail.com. Next slide. This is the end of the presentation. Thank you very much. Zikomo kwambiri, taonga chomene, zikomo kwejinji. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chiponde, for that great and informative presentation. I'm sure most of the questions have been addressed in the comment section on YouTube, but I will also allow for this opportunity to also have some questions addressed to Mr. Chiponde for him to respond.
Hi, Brian. Okay, so I think most of the, it's not more, I'm being in my comment. I think Cindy Panga Wambiri Komano, it is very important to ku immigration muone ma comments amena perekedwa pamenepo. The biggest issue ndionena kuti kuli ma delay ambiri when anthu akamapanga apply for my visa, for my passport. Zikuonesa kuti zikumatenga nthawi kwambiri, palibe ma guarantee a service. Chinanso chachikulu ndionena kuti I think pali kudandaula kuti mwina pakumakhala abuse ya ma applicants akumapangidwa kuti alipire ndalama zoposa ndi mene officially it's supposed to be done. I think there is also the issue you might also want to mention kuti what is the fee structure for people applying for my passports through missions? Is it the same process? Kabena basi is out of question. But the biggest issue ndiongonena kuti akudandaula anthu kuti online payment would have been the best, and the 2023 ndikutali kwambiri ndekuti up to now there are going to be somehow abused in a sense. Mwina ndi middlemen, amene azibale awo ena ndi ena amene amazota samangala chilungamo, komanso even allegations of kuti even ku immigration kukhala ngati kuti zinthu kumeneko sizili bwino. Mutiyankha bwanji?
Thank you very much. Very valid and important questions directed to the Department of Immigration. Let me highlight that immigration is a pinnacle of excellence when it comes to service delivery. We play our rightful role to ensure that we stick to a service charter. This is an implied contract to the general clientele in terms of passport services. So mostly, when we tell them that we are going to issue these passports in 10 days, we stick to that. But you might be, the general public might be aware, and even Malawians in diaspora, we usually issue communiques to ensure that we are on the same page. So one of the communications that we indicated was that we scaled down production of passports because consumables, passport booklets and consumables were depleted. Hence, that time we were mostly prioritizing what we coined as emergency cases. Through that, so we were sticking with the Tandiza and Tokawa Menagonega and they would want to seek services outside Malawi. And some other government meetings outside Malawi. So priority but currently, as I'm speaking, as we are holding this webinar, we are in full swing in terms of passport production, and we are sticking to that. Just yesterday, I was checking the backlog. We have cleared all the backlog. So everybody who submitted their passport application to Department of Immigration, whether through embassy or through courier, to ensure that indeed we are a pinnacle of excellence when it comes to service delivery. Issue we usually advise and encourage the clientele, which meet immigration officers in uniform. There are some other people who pose outside of our offices, posing as immigration officers. We have no control over that because these people probably, our offices are within the CBD. Most of the times we are in the central business district. So people could still move around the offices. And instead of asking a competent immigration officer, they opt to ask somebody, many salary immigration officer, and they're not even in uniform. Approach people who are in uniform, and you will be assisted and you'll be given the best treatment ever. So there is also this question, what are the fees for people who are in diaspora? As indicated in my presentation, payment currently is being done in Malawi. So this is the one size fits all. If you are applying kunja, through the embassy, I may not know issues and courier services, but when it comes to actual payment, every other person will pay the very same fees that even Malawians, and them as well will pay the same. So it's the same fees for everybody. It's only good you choose the service that you want, and at the same time the booklet type, whether it will be a 36-page or a 48-page passport. But immigration, thank you.
I think two.
All right.
Just one more issue.
All right.
Akuti tisanene kuti ndi abuse ya ndi corruption ndi ziphuphu. Akuti ku immigration kwachuluka, ku passport office kuli ziphuphu, kuli corruption. China akukudandaulani kuti ma email anu ndi a Gmail, they don't look very official. I think imene ndi comment yoti muitenge kuti mwina mwake muone kuti mupangapo bwanji. Kuonesa kuti mukanena kuti muli ku Gmail mukuonetsa ngati kuti simuli credible yayi. Ziko.
Thank you very much. Kania Gmail noted. We will inform our officers kuti government policy kunenetsa kuti aliyense azigwiritsa ntchito a government domain email. And at the same time, issue of corruption. We are a department which is guided by a special anti-corruption policy targeting immigration officers. And there are ways where people may submit nkhani zomwe akukayikirapo kuti pachitidwa zina zake zokhudzana ndi chinyengo kapena corruption. As indicated, corruption kwambiri, people might say our officers are involved in these issues probably when they meet madobadobas, people outside our offices, and not necessarily us in uniform, because we are professionals and we would want to deliver the best service, surpassing even the expectations of the people we intend to serve. Thanks very much.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chiponde, for the quick responses. And thank you for everyone in the comment section for bringing up these questions. I'm sure this has been very informative and eye-opening. So due to timing, I trust that we now know who to approach to handle the issue of passport renewal for Malawians in the diaspora and what steps we should expect. At this moment, I would like to call upon Mr. Asante Musa from the National Registration Bureau to lead our final presentation on the administration of national identity cards for Malawians in the diaspora. Mr. Asante Musa, please take over the mic.
Bwana Asante Musa, please start talking. You have been unmuted. Mr. Asante Musa, try again. Asante Musa, try again. Okay.
I think I can make the presentation if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so Asante, can you hear me? In case you are there, you can proceed. Okay, let me know when you are online, Asante, then you can proceed. Otherwise, I'm taking over. So my name is Maxambo, and I'm the Principal Secretary for National Registration Bureau. We are going to make a presentation on the national ID registration and the process that the Malawians in diaspora can take. Next. Next. Next slide, please.
Oh, I'm going. So this is going to just give me a second. They will share.
Okay, Mubage, sorry, share and use the up and down arrow.
All right, just 1 second. Do you want it like this? Is it better?
It's okay like this, but the presentation model is even better.
Okay, I'll try again.
Okay.
Now, is it working?
Can you try to slide?
I'm slide number 2 now.
No, it's not moving.
Okay, then let's just leave it at with a preview.
Okay, right. Thank you very much once again, and apologies for the technology hiccups. So I'm going to talk about the background, the components of the national registration and identification system, the ID registration in Malawi, and then the same in diaspora. And I also talk about the eligibility for ID registration in diaspora. Then I'll talk about the requirements for registration and the components of the main registration form, NR1 form. I'll also talk about proof of citizenship and registration process, data synchronization process, and ID printing. And then, most importantly, why should you register for the national ID? Next. So the National Registration Bureau was established in the year 2003, and it is under the Ministry of Homeland Security. The mandate for the National Registration Bureau is to coordinate, to manage, to maintain, and implement the NRIS, which is the National Registration and Identification System. This mandate is derived from the National Registration Act of 2010. Next. So the National Registration and Identification System, which is the NRIS system, has 2 components. Component number 1 is the civil identification system, and the second one is the civil registration system. Under the civil identification system, this is where the national ID is housed, and we register the Malawians as well as resident foreigners. While in the civil registration system, there is the registration of birth, death, and marriage. So far, NRB is only registering birth and death. We are yet to start the marriage registrations. Next. Next, please. Okay, I think you could just be clicking on the slides on the left-hand side. Then I'll be able to read through. I have lost the slide view. Apologies once again. We are waiting for the host to correct the slide deck. So hold on, and I'll be able to continue from where I stopped. Maybe you could try to reshare the screen. I think that's okay. You could be clicking on the slide deck and okay. Yeah, sure. Thank you. Next slide. Thank you. Okay, apologies once again. I'm continuing. So the ID registration in Malawi started in the year 2016. There was a proof of concept and a pilot for 60,000 Malawians who were registered during this time. But from May 2017, with support from UNDP and other development partners, NRB carried out mass registration for 6 months. And then a total of just above 9 million Malawians were registered. From 2018 up to today, NRB is doing continuous registration. And in addition to the 9 million, we now are at 10.2 million Malawians registered and issued with the national ID card. Next. In diaspora, since 2016 to date, all ID registrations have taken place in Malawi, district registration offices, in the post offices, and sometimes using the mobile outreach registration exercises. This means that Malawians living outside Malawi, they have to travel to Malawi to get registered. So as government, we understand the pain and trouble that is being caused by this, especially for Malawians living in diaspora. Therefore, currently as government, we have decided to lessen this burden by coming closer to the citizens to carry out the registration. So in this year, starting from April 1, as NRB, as government of Malawi, we intend to carry out the registration in a few countries, such as USA, covering Canada as well, the Great Britain, South Africa, and other countries. We are in very close discussion with the embassy, the High Commission in Great Britain in London. Maybe we could start doing the registration in the next few months. So we are planning to start with maybe London, then America, then including Canada or South Africa, but the schedule might be shared in advance. And we understand that when our team goes to the embassies or high commissions, they could be taking 3 weeks for the registration exercises to be completed, and then they'll come back to Malawi for the printing of the cards and to be issued. Next. So the eligibility for the registration of Malawians in diaspora is that, one, the applicants must be Malawian citizens, and the NRB, according to the mandate, the registration is for every Malawian who is above 16 years old. And by the way, we also intend to do registration for other services like birth where necessary. So those who are less than 16 years, we could register for their for birth certificates, but those who are above 16 will be registered for the national ID. So for one to be eligible, they must not be already registered with NRB in Malawi, and they should not have been issued with a national ID card already. So the registration system comprises of fingerprint registration, passport size photos, and other registration requirements. And for one to be registered, they must possess all the required documents that are in the original initial national registration form, like NR1 form, and they should have for their passport, birth certificate, and other authentic documents for from immigration. Next. I continue with the requirements for the registration. The applicant must physically present themselves to the registration officer. So this is the reason we intend to send our team to other countries for them to be able to get closer to the applicants so that the applicants are able to present themselves to the registration officer. So there they will complete the registration form with all the documentation, and also a payment fee will be expected to be paid there and then. Next. So the main NR1 form, the registration form, has got 4 parts. The parts include the applicant details for parents, witness details, and also other recommendations. Next. And for one to be registered, they need to have the proof of citizenship, which is the national ID, copy of the national ID for either parent, copy of Malawi passport, or certified signed letter from immigration attaché or at the embassy, or the birth certificate, and other documents to prove one's Malawian citizenship. Next. So the registration process goes like this. The registration officer will have a biometric registration kit, popularly known as the BRK kit, that will help the registration officer to enroll the biodata and biometric details. And these BRKs will be shipped to the embassy before the officers go for the registration, and the NRB will send enough officers to support in the registration process during the period when the registration will be taking place in those embassies. And we anticipate that the registration will be completed at least 6 to 7 days per registration center. And we also assume that in one country, or in one country, maybe one embassy might have 3 or more registration centers. So that the registration officer will move according to the schedule that would have been shared in advance. Next. Yeah. So when the data has been collected and when the applicants' details have been collected and those details have been enrolled in the biometric registration kits, the printing of the card is not instant. Currently, all the cards are being printed centrally, and that is in Malawi. So it means the data will have to be synchronized to the servers, to the main servers, so that the printing should be done. So the data will have to be synchronized to the servers, and all the processes of data cleaning done, especially to verify if there are no duplicates. And you might wish to know that whenever a citizen is registered, they are actually issued with a unique ID number, which is a lifetime unique ID number. So for example, if one registers for birth certificate, that same number will be used for their national ID when they are 10, 16 years old. And God forbid, when one dies, it will be the same number that will appear on their death certificate. So this process is robust like this because we want to ensure that only one person has one ID and they are issued with one card at a time. So this is the reason why the data has to be collected after the enrollment and synchronized to the servers in Malawi for the ID card to be issued in good time. And then after the ID cards are issued, or printed and issued, there will be plans for distribution. Next. Okay, so just one next. Back one more slide. Can you go back one more slide? Top one, yes. Top, yes. So this is now my last slide, and we just wanted to talk about the importance of your registration with a national ID. So the ID has now become the primary identification document at all levels. So with the unique identification number, it will be the same number, the same ID that will be used. For example, if you want to acquire land in Malawi, so there's land information management system that this card should be used. The same with the road traffic, the same with all other services, including know your customer services like in the banks. So far, about 90% of the financial service providers have linked to NRB system, and all services are centered on the unique ID that is provided by the National Registration and Identification System. And when you want to apply for a passport, you will always need the national ID. For you to register with MRA for taxpayer identification, you will need the national ID. And for you to participate in the elections, especially in voting, you will need the national ID. Even for the registration of mobile communication or phones, you will need the national ID. So the national ID is actually a cornerstone, and it has proven that it is an important document, and the demand is indeed rising in Malawi because every other sector is dependent on the national ID. Next. So for contacts, we have our Senior Public Relations Officer. The number is shown there. For those who cannot see, the number is +265 9997 87718. Or you can send an email to info@nrb.gov.mw. But you can also visit the website at www.nrb.gov.mw. And we are also available on Facebook at National Registration. So this is the end of our presentation. I send over to the host. Over.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sambo, for the excellent presentation, and for thanking you for taking it over from Mr. Asante Musa. I'm sure some questions in the comment section on YouTube have been addressed, but I would also like to take this opportunity for us to also ask the questions, to ask you the questions verbally here on Zoom.
Okay, no, thanks a lot. I think most of the questions are more of comments, but I think it's a very important issue to bring out. The issue is that why national IDs meant to expire. I think most people are disappointed that the IDs have to expire after 1 year of use, and then they also have to keep renewing. There's a question about wrong biometric data. Apparently, if the person has submitted wrong biometric data, they are meant to resubmit at their cost. But this one, I think, could be something to do with passports. If you are able to answer it, or maybe someone else can answer it, but I think it's a growing concern. I think it has been mentioned several times. Maybe it started off from the other presentation. So I don't know if you were able to address this particular question, whether it is happening also with the NRB. I'm not so sure, but if you can also address that issue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. My Chief Registration Officer, Mr. Asante Musa, is here, but let me handle the question of the national ID card expiry. So I would want to make it clear to all the participants in this webinar that indeed the national ID has to expire every 10 years. So for example, it is assumed that a citizen will acquire the national ID at 16 years old. So by 10 years, it means by the age of 26, the national ID will expire. And by the age of 36, 46, 56, the national ID will expire. So, for example, if I am now 20 years old, when I go to register for my national ID, my ID will expire in 2026, which is, by the age of 26, which is 6 years after my registration. But at that time, if someone was 25 years old and they register for their national ID, it means their ID will expire just in a year's time, even if you were registered on the same day. So the same with renewal. If by the age of 26, the ID card has expired and you haven't renewed it, if you go and renew at the age of 35, you only have 1 year for your ID, and then it will expire again. So I hope I'm making myself clear that the ID will expire at every 10 years. So dependent on when one reaches 26 or 36 years old, which should be different, then it may not be the same time that the national ID, it may not be the same as when one went for the renewal of the national ID. If somebody goes to renew for the national ID at the age of 27, it means they will have 9 years before their ID expires. So having said this, let me check if Mr. Asante Musa is online. Mr. Musa? Okay, I just wanted to check if my chief registration officer is online. So since he's not able to speak, okay, he says he can't unmute himself, so that's okay. Regarding the wrong biometric data being collected, I have never heard of such an issue. I think if there has been any issue regarding wrong registration being collected, then I'll stand to be corrected. But I am still not sure how that could be. Could have happened. That's why I wanted my chief, if there's any case that he has registered. But anyway, should there be any issue, I think we have shared the contact details. They can send us an email and we'll act accordingly. And if there's any additional question in addition to that, I think we'll also be able to handle it. Over to you, the host.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sambo, for your responses to the questions. I'm sure the presentation and the answers were very informative. More importantly, I trust that we now know who to approach to help with national identity cards for Malawians in the diaspora and what steps we should expect. Thank you. At this moment, we are almost done with our webinar. I would like to take this opportunity to have the Principal Secretary to come on and add any closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon to all participants to this webinar. I'm now coming in again as the Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Homeland Security. My responsibility is to head the National Registration Bureau. I would like to thank the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the team for organizing this webinar. This is a very important webinar and eye-opening to most of our citizens in the diaspora. And as government, we hope we have shared what is happening right now and what are our plans, our future plans in the midst of Homeland Security, especially regarding issues to do with the passport services and citizenship services, including the national identification. We believe that with this presentation, our members in the diaspora will be able to understand how to access the services from the departments in the ministry, especially the dual citizenship, the new service, the dual citizenship that we have just explained in our presentations. With these few remarks, I would like to thank everyone who was available online and everyone who participated and the presenters, and to encourage all our Malawians that if there are any questions or issues, they should be able to contact us, and we'll be very willing to respond accordingly. And I wish everyone else all the best as we sign out. Thank you very much on behalf of the Ministry of Homeland Security and the Minister herself, Honorable Jean Sendeza MP, I say thank you very much to you all. Over.
All right, thank you very much. With that, I would like to close this webinar, and I wish you all, those who joined us for this webinar, a good evening or a good day. Thank you. God bless you. For now, we'll play the national anthem for our closing moment.
God bless our land of Malawi, keep it a land of peace. Put down each and every enemy, hunger, disease, and greed. Join together all our hearts as one, that we be free from fear. Bless our leader, each and every one, and Mother Malawi.
Thank you very much, everyone. This is indeed the end. Wishing you all the best. We hope you will be talking to all of us. Also, take time to use our missions around the world. They are your first point of call whenever some issues come up for you. We hope that they are able to assist you in whatever way. We wish you a good day. Thank you.
Thank you and good evening. Bye-bye.
Good evening. Bye-bye.